Hallelujah.
Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 of the Glad Sound Chronicles. I wanted to share with you a bigger picture of what's been going on. In the last 2 videos, I shared largely what's been going on in my personal life that's kind of led to the Glad Sound. But now I want to share what's going on largely with my church and hopefully what can go on with the rest of the United States with this. So I'm sitting here today with my former church history professor in seminary and now my mentor and colleague and fellow pastor, the senior pastor, Dr. Donald W. Sweeting of Cherry Creek Presbyterian Church.
Yeah. It's good to be here.
Yeah. He himself is a musician and from a family of musicians here, as you can see from the wall behind me. And really, when I came to Cherry Creek, I had an interview, and really walking out of the parking lot of that interview, I was able to have a conversation with Don that was kind of unique. Don, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, but the first thing I got to tell you is you call me a musician. You know, I'm taking bagpipe lessons. Most people don't consider that, you know, music unless you're Scottish, and then it's heaven's music.
Fair enough.
Okay, anyway, I'm learning. Yeah, we met in the parking lot, or we talked in the parking lot about just Cherry Creek, and Cherry Creek's an amazing church. There's a lot of giftedness, and we have had a very strong traditional music ministry in the past, and we're still committed to a very strong traditional music ministry. But we also know that the church is very big, and God's doing a lot of neat things. And we talked about the potential of the new hymns movement and introducing old hymns to a new generation in sounds that they love, and in some cases it's an improvement on the old hymns.
Well, Don, you were my church history professor, as I said before, and we learned a lot of things in class, but it was really in that class, among others, that I continued to gain an appreciation for what was going on in churches and in the church well before the modern church ever existed. The question I have for you is, what do you appreciate about old hymns, and what do you appreciate about modern worship?
I love old hymns because of their text. Often it's a very Bible-driven text that's got a lot of substance to it, and it's theologically solid. It teaches, but you know, they have their limits, and I think there's some of the newer music that tends to be a little bit more first person. Often you see more intimacy in the newer songs, and they may not be as theologically dense, but you know, some of them are good, some of them aren't. And the same with hymns. There are some hymns that are great hymns, and there's some that, you know, we can forget about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in previous editions of the Glad Sound Chronicles and on my website, I talk a lot about this burgeoning hymns movement that's going on all across the United States that I'm proud to be a part of. What do you see as the value of the hymns movement as you observe it?
Well, for one, it's bringing back hymns into the church, but in a way that's culturally relevant, and that's good. It brings, you know, texts that they're old, yes, but very solid stuff. You know, but the tunes are accessible, and the venue is very relevant to a younger generation. Mm-hmm. One of the fascinating things about church history and music is all the changes that have taken place. And if you go way back, and you go back to the real traditional music of the church, you're going back to the first or the second temple. Really the music of the second temple, which would have been still in play around the time of Christ. And it would have still, their instruments would have still been okay because of the influence of the Psalms and the temple. But it would have been Oriental sounding, and I'm pretty sure totally unacceptable to any church in North America today.
Right.
It would sound weird. And then, you know, you watch the changes happen, and you see them move away from instruments for whatever reason, and then you see the plain song chant with Ambrose and Gregory, and there's a lot of richness there. And then you see the polyphonic chant, and then you see, you know, them start to add instruments, and the organ come on the scene, and other instruments, and then it becomes performance driven, and the reformers have to basically you know, say, let's go back to Scripture and let's get simple again and get the congregation singing again. We have to keep, you know, reforming because we tend to drift. And when the radical Watts and Wesley came along, they were unacceptable to the church because they weren't using strictly Scripture. So they had churches that would allow them to be sung, their songs to be sung on Sunday nights, but not on Sunday mornings. And then they become mainstream. And then now in our day, that's the traditional music of the church. So you see all these changes.
Right.
And you realize that God uses a lot of different vehicles, musical vehicles, to get his message across. And the crux of it all is the Father is pleased with those who worship him in spirit and in truth. That's the heart of everything. So if the new hymns movement can push us in that direction more, I think that's great.
Yeah.
But it's pretty neat to see us take some hymns and then to tweak them, and to see a Zach Hicks and a Charles Wesley working together, or an Isaac Watts, and let's just face it, there's just a wonderful richness to the text that focus on Christ and his cross and the majesty of Christ and the glory of God, and in a way that some of the new songs that are out there, it's just not there. Now there's some really great new songs, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of times where I feel like it's thin. There's no weight or substance or glory, and you feel some of that weight with the hymns of the new hymns movement.
Well, as our senior pastor and as someone who's been behind the Glad Sound and the project really from the beginning, what do you hope is going to be the effect of the Glad Sound?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of our music team that's been working on this. I think it just adds a richness. It adds another venue for people who aren't into classical music, and then it just adds a lot of life to our church. So I think it's great. I love the fact that some of the songs we've been singing are now on a CD, and I can put it on my computer or listen to it in the car and sing them outside of a Sunday morning service.
Yep, that's
I like that.